Here we are, everybody. Episode 1, Thomas Pynchon's Inherent Vice. What are you thinking so far? What am I thinking so far? This book took a little while for me to get into. I'm appreciating where he's coming from, the author that is, the kind of world he's trying to create. But in the beginning, I couldn't quite figure it out. And as I mentioned earlier on when we were voting on this book, I had seen the film. And I will have to say that Joaquin Phoenix was quite possibly the perfect person to cast for this role. However, I don't remember any afros in the movie. And there's really not much drive to this book whatsoever. It does have a very noir voice at times. It has a very stoner voice at times. But one thing that I've been highly impressed with, this is the first Thomas Pynchon novel I've ever read. And his ability to write is astounding, right? Characterization is off the charts. I mean, you can really visualize these people. If you're a writer, pay very close attention to the way he describes things. Pay very close attention to the dialogue, especially, because this is what I talk about a lot of times, where every person needs to sound different. And he passes with flying colors in this book. I can't say enough good things about the dialogue in this. The funny thing is, though, is as much as I appreciate this book and the writing style, and it's very vivid, there's so much specificity. That's another thing I'd like to mention if you're a writer out there, is the details. There is so much detail, so much vivid detail. He's very specific. And what that does is, a lot of times you might think that's overwritten, but it really allows you to create a picture in your mind. But back to what I was talking about, as much as I appreciate the writing, as much as I never really find myself bored, I can't quite say I'm enjoying this book. Does that make sense? There's not much drive to it. I think part of it is that I'm not a huge fan of stoner culture. I'm from California myself, so I'm getting a lot out of this because I'm familiar with a lot of the regions, even though this is taking place in the 60s. But I don't know. I mean, it's fine to read. I guess I'm sort of enjoying reading it. It just doesn't have the same drive that you get out of most books. So I'm not sure if Pynchon writes this way often or if this is just kind of a one-off. It always seemed to me that his stuff was far more literary than this, so I don't know if he's having fun with this. I'm not sure if he's trying to say something with this. We shall see, and I will stop babbling. Let us get into chapter 1, but don't forget, let me know down in the comments below what you're thinking so far. Also, don't forget to like the video so we can get more people to read along with us for all these books. She came along the alley and up the back steps the way she always used to. Doc hadn't seen her for over a year. That you, Shasta? Think he's hallucinating. Just a new package, I guess. I need your help, Doc. There's this guy, she was saying. There would be, but why get emotional? This is when we learn that they had been together for some time. What I enjoy also about this scene is that it's very noir-like, right? It's always a woman coming in to see a detective, right? That's how they often start, or there is some kind of femme fatale, some kind of female at the center of the story, someone who is going to get in the mix in some way. And he can't help himself. He's got to help her, right? And the wife, she knows about you? Shasta nodded. But she's seeing somebody too. Only it isn't just the usual. They're working together on some creepy little scheme. To make off with hubby's fortune, yeah. And you want me to do what exactly? And then they go into the front room. You're still trying to figure out if it's right or wrong, Shasta? Worse than that. How much loyalty I owe him. Groovy. Emotions aside then, let's look at the money. How much of the rent he's been picking up? All of it. Doc whistled the title notes from Can't Buy Me Love. That's a classic noir style line right there. You're giving him IOUs for everything, of course. How much were Wifey and the BF offering to cut you in for? And Shasta named a sum. This isn't just a couple of X-rated Polaroids, then. It isn't what you're thinking, Doc. Don't worry, thinking comes later. What else? I'm not sure, but it sounds like they want to commit him to some loony bin. And this is when we learn it is Mickey Wolfman. He is the man we are after. The real estate big shot. I moved out of my old place, staying where I can anymore. Don't ask. He almost said, there's room here. Which in fact there wasn't, but he'd seen her looking around at everything that had changed. The authentic English pub dartboard up on the wagon wheel, and the whorehouse swag lamp with a purple psychedelic bulb with a vibrating filament, the collection of model hot rods made entirely of Coors cans, on and on and on. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about specificity. He walked her down the hill to where she was parked. In the last pocket of darkness before the glare of Beachfront Drive, they came to a pause, a timeless pedestrian gesture in these parts that usually announced a kiss or at least a grabbed ass. So that's what I kind of like about what Pynchon's doing here is that's a very noir line again, but the grabbed ass really makes it modern. It modernizes it. You were always true. After she drove away, Doc sat on a bench down on the esplanade. He ran through things he hadn't asked, like how much he'd come to depend on Wolfman's guaranteed level of ease and power. Back at his place, Doc stood for a while, gazing at a velvet painting from one of the Mexican families who set up their weekend pitches. This is California. You don't know how often you see these things anywhere in California. So I don't live in Southern California. I live more Central Coast California. But it's hilarious how accurate this is. So along the boulevards, we see these setups, Gordita and the freeway. Out of the vans and into the calm early mornings would come sofa with crucifixions and Last Suppers, outlaw bikers on elaborately detailed Harleys, superhero badasses and special forces gear packing M16s and so forth. This picture of Doc's showed a Southern California beach that never was. Palms, bikini babes, surfboards, the works. Sometimes in the shadows, the view would light up, usually when he was smoking weed, as if the contrast knob of creation had been messed with just enough to give everything an underglow, a luminous edge, and promise that the night was about to turn epic somehow. That's cool. That's another thing I should mention is that he's stoned a lot in this. And the voice or the POV in this, it kind of veers from omniscient to limited third, kind of goes back and forth quite often because we'll see that a lot of the descriptions or observations are in his voice, clearly, a stoner's voice. But then other times we'll get this, what is very common with noir is a very distant, omniscient voice that gives us that kind of language. And except for tonight, which only looked more like work, he got on the telephone and tried to call Penny, but she was out. Next, he rang up his Aunt Reet, who lived down the boulevard on the other side of the dunes in a more suburban part of the town with houses, yards, and trees. Whenever Doc needed to know anything touching on the world of property, Aunt Reet, with her phenomenal lot-by-lot grasp of land use from the desert to the sea, as they like to say on the evening news, was the one he went to. She picked up on the sixth ring. "Make it quick, Doc. I've got a live one tonight and a quarter ton of makeup to put on." What can you tell me about Mickey Wolfman? West Side Hochdeutsch Mafia, biggest of the big, construction, savings and loans, untaxed billions stashed under an Alp someplace, technically Jewish, but wants to be a Nazi, becomes exercised often to the point of violence at those who forget to spell his name with two N's. What's he to you? And Doc gave her the rundown. That right there, beautiful characterization. The book on Mickey is he's unpredictable. Drive within 10 blocks of the man, they'll lie down in front of your car. Where do you think I could run into him like accidentally? There's so many great lines of his in this book. I didn't highlight all of them, obviously, but again, you got to see the film, maybe after the book if you haven't seen it yet, but you will see that Joaquin Phoenix embodies this character. All right, it's your ass, kid. He's at some shipboard horror known as Channel View Estates. Oh yeah, that. Bigfoot Bjornson does commercials for them. Another crazy name, Bigfoot Bjornson. Like many LA cops, Bigfoot, named for his entry method of choice, harbored show business yearnings, but he also received residual checks. So not only was he yearning to be in showbiz, he was to a degree. Bigfoot often reminded viewers of legendary used car figure Cal Worthington. And scripts featured a relentless terror squad of small children who climbed all over the model home furniture, performed insubordinate cannonballs into the backyard pools. Look at all these visuals we're getting here, guys. And they screamed freak power and death to the pig. Viewers were ecstatic. There was now a sudden hammering on the front door. And it was Dennis. Actually, I think, yeah, here we go. Whose name everybody pronounced to rhyme with penis. So it's Dennis. I guess that's how I'm going to pronounce it. So, Doc, I'm up on Dunecrest, the drugstore there, and I noticed their sign, drugstore. Okay, walked past it 1,000 times. Never really saw a drugstore, man. Far out. So this guy clearly is a stoner. Dennis, by now, had drifted into the kitchen and started looking through the fridge. Why don't we go eat someplace? And Pipeline Pizza was jumping. That is where they headed off to. Doc watched Ensenada Slim work one of his Gottlieb machines in the corner. Slim owned and operated a head shop just up the street called the Screaming Ultraviolet Brain. Buy you a beer, Slim? Was that Shasta's car I saw down the drive? She stuck her head in for a couple minutes. Kind of weird seeing her again. I always figured when I did, it'd be on the tube, not in person. But at Playa Vista High, Shasta made class beauty in the yearbook 4 years running, and as soon as she could manage it, she was off up the freeway looking for some low-rent living space in Hollywood. So, very beautiful woman we were talking about here. And Dennis came back with his pizza. I forgot what I asked for on it. That's a papaya chunk, Slim guessed. And are these pork rinds? And boysenberry yogurt on pizza, Dennis? Frankly, ew. It was sortilege, I don't know, who used to work in Doc's office before her boyfriend Spike came back from Vietnam. Would you mind, Dinas, actually, if I just took this piece of tofu? Add some marshmallow, Dinas said. Back at his place again, Doc rolled a number, put on a late movie, found an old t-shirt, and sat tearing it up into short strips about half an inch wide till he had a pile of maybe 100 of these. He took a narrow length of it and rolled each one around a strip of t-shirt. It's fairly presentable, 1.5-foot diameter white guy afro. So I don't remember this in the film. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but hilarious imagery. And he inserted his head into a liquor store carton to preserve the shape. Doc laid down on the couch. He dreamed about Shasta, of course. No point in sleeping anymore. He stumbled up the hill to Huevos and had breakfast with the hardcore surfers who were always there. Hey man, that cop was around looking for you again. This is a guy named Flacco the Bad. Cop? When was this? Last night. That was Bigfoot Bjornsson. You might have been thinking about it, but said something like, tomorrow is another day. Which would be today, right? Not if I can help it. So, pretty funny line there. There's a lot of lines like that where they're just absolutely ridiculous, almost like cartoon level. Doc's office was located near the airport of East Imperial. He shared the place with a Dr. Buddy Tubeside, whose practice consisted largely of injecting people with vitamin B12, in quotes, a euphemism for the physician's own blend of amphetamines. So holding a clipboard and checking them in stood Petunia Leeway, a stunner in a starched cap and micro-length medical outfit, not so much an actual nurse uniform as a lascivious, that's hard to say, commentary on one. Morning, Doc. Love you, fro. The sign on his door read LSD Investigation, LSD, as he explained when people asked, which was not often, standing for Location Surveillance Detective. Yeah, more stoner humor. Here we go. A visitor was here already, in fact, waiting for Doc. What made him unusual was he was a black guy. Paragraph goes on to explain how there's not many black people around here at the beach. Say, Doc greeted his visitor. What is it, my brother? Never mind that shit, replied the black guy, introducing himself as Tariq Khalil. Well, come on in. And he waved Tariq into one of the seats and sat down across from him. Okay, so this is a guy I was in the joint with, white guy, Aryan bro, as a matter of fact. We did some business, now we're both out. He still owes me. I mean, it's a lot of money. I can't give the details. I swore an oath I wouldn't tell. How about his name? Glenn Charlock. You know where he's staying now? He's a bodyguard for a builder named Wolfman. Mr. Khalil, how did you hear about this agency? Sledge Poteet. Wow, blast from the past. Said you'd helped him out in a situation back in '67. I remember him when he couldn't boil water. You should see him now. He can boil tap water, Arrowhead Springs water, club soda, Perrier, you name it. He is the boiler man. So why not just go over there and look him up directly? Why hire some go-betweens? Because this Wolfman is surrounded day and night with some Aryan Brotherhood army. And outside of Glenn, I've never enjoyed cordial relations with those Nazi-ass motherfuckers. So send some white guy in to get his head hammered, more or less. There's something else, Doc guessed. My old street gang, Artesia Crips. When I got out of Chino, I went looking for some of them and found it ain't just them gone, but the turf itself. Far out. What do you mean, gone? Not there. Grinded up in little pieces. Seagulls all picking at it. Uh-huh, Doc typed. Not hallucinating. Nobody and nothing. Ghost town except for this big sign coming soon on the site. Guess who the builder's on it? Wolfman again? That's it. On the wall, Doc had a map of this region. He pretended to run an ethnicity scan on Tariq. You're like, what again? Japanese? How long you been doing this? If I can get a hold of your prison buddy, will he honor his debt to you? I can't tell you what it is. Oh, and the other thing is I can't give you nothing in front. Groovy with that? Sledge was right. You're one crazy white motherfucker. How can you tell? I counted. I don't get that. I don't know what that means. I counted on it? I'm not quite sure. Let me know in the comments what the hell that means. Which brings us to chapter 2. And Doc took the freeway out. Beginning on Artesia, signs directed Doc to Channel View Estates. The development stretched into the haze and the soft smell of the fog component of smog and of the desert beneath the pavement. See, beautiful descriptions there. He parked at what would be the corner of Kaufman and Broad and walked back. Close to what would be the front gate of the Channel View Estates, Doc found a makeshift mini plaza put there basically for the construction folks. Hi, I'm Jade, says a bubbly young Asian lady. And please take note of today's Pussy Eater special, which is good all day till closing time. Not that $14.95 ain't a totally groovy price, but I'm really trying to locate this guy who works for Mr. Wolfman. Far out. Does he eat pussy? Is he high here? Is this real? I don't know. I don't know. That's what's kind of fun about this book. Well, Jade, you know better than me. Fella named Glenn? Oh, sure. Glenn comes in here. They all do. Have you seen him today? Till about 1 minute ago. Are you a cop? Let's see. Doc inspected his feet. Nah, wrong shoes. Another joke I don't get, but pretty funny. Reason I ask is if you were a cop, you'd be entitled to a free preview of our Pussy Eater special. I love how everything's a question, right? That's perfect. I'm sure you've met a woman like this where she's a little valet. She's always making statements that sound like questions. I went to high school with one. How about a licensed PI? Would that, hey, Bambi. And out through the bead curtains, as if on a timeout from a beach volleyball game, strode this blonde in a turquoise and orange Dayglow bikini. Oh boy, Doc said. Where do we... Not you, bong brain. Oh, huh. See, this is what I thought is here, where it says Pussy Eater Special is... What that means is that... And finally, they disappeared down behind the reception desk. And he wandered away, figuring to have a look around. Nobody was around, though. It felt like maybe there had been till Doc showed up. Doc began to hear a lot of screaming from outside, along with a massed thundering of Harleys. Uh-oh, what's this? He didn't find out. Maybe it was all the exotic sensory input that caused Doc about then to swoon abruptly. And then he finally awoke. So this is when he finds Detective Lieutenant Bigfoot Bjornson, LAPD. Congratulations, hippie scum. Bigfoot greeted Doc in his all-too-familiar 30-weight voice. And welcome to a world of inconvenience. Yes, this time it appears you have finally managed to stumble into something too real and deep to hallucinate your worthless hippie ass out of it. He was holding a now and then taking bites from his trademark chocolate-covered frozen banana. A great character item there. Howdy, Bigfoot. Can I have a bite? So stupid. Where are we at the moment again? In Channelview Estates. And they were still within the sight of the front gate, though a maze of stapled-together framing, Doc made out the afternoon light, a blurry vista of streets full of newly poured foundations awaiting houses. Without wishing to seem impatient, the lieutenant continued, anytime you feel you'd like to join us, we would so like to chat. Bigfoot, I don't know what happened. Last I recall, I was in that massage parlor over there. Wishful figments of a brain pickled in cannabis fumes, no doubt. And then he caught sight of a medical examiner's crew with a blood-streaked human body supine on a gurney. Doc found himself freaking out in terms of his stomach and whatever. Bigfoot Bjornson smirked. Yes, I can almost pity your civilian distress. Who is it? Doc nodding at the corpse. Was, Sportello. Here on Earth we say was. Me, Glenn Charlock, whom you were asking for by name only hours ago. Witnesses will swear to that. Ah, but here's our ride. Hey, my car. Come on, Sportello. You know we'll be more than happy to give you a lift. Watch your head. Watch my... How am I supposed to do that, man? They didn't go downtown, but for reasons of cop protocol forever obscure to Doc, only as far as the Compton station, where they pulled into that lot and paused next to the battered 68 El Camino. Funny, I think my dad had like a 71 El Camino. Here's Patello. Come and give me a hand with this. What, excuse me, the fuck is it? Bob wire. They lift it out of the trunk and stash it in the bed of the El Camino. Livestock problems where you live, Bigfoot? Oh, you'd never use this wire for actual fence. Wait, you collect barbed wire? Well, yes, as it turned out, along with spurs, harnesses, cowboy sombreros, saloon paintings, sheriff stars, bullet molds, and all kinds of Wild West paraphernalia. Doc's history with Bigfoot beginning with a minor drug episode, stop and frisks up and down Sepulveda, and repeated front door repairs had escalated a couple of years ago with the Lunchwater case. A tax accountant who had thought he'd scored some quality surveillance on the cheap had hired Doc to keep an eye on his wife. And he went to go take a closer look, and he went and lit a joint to pass the time, but before long he had fallen asleep and half rolled, half slid down the shallow pitch of the red tile roof. Hubby's arrival, considerable screaming and gunfire loud. Meanwhile, he is, right here, up on the roof, was still snoring away. Here's the second time we know that you've been discovered sleeping at the scene of a major crime, and unable, dare I suggest, unwilling to furnish us any details. When you and Glenn Charlock had your fatal encounter, when would you say that was exactly, in the sequence of events? I told you the first time I ever saw him, he was dead. Yes, now your ex-girlfriend Shasta Faye Hepworth is a known intimate of Glenn's employer, Mickey Wolfman, and he made a loose fist and slid them... Okay, this is weird. He made a loose fist and slid the middle finger of his other hand back and forth in it for what seemed to Doc way too long. Do that some more, Bigfoot. I think I'm getting a hard on. So random. In case you forgot, Lieutenant, you and me are almost in the same business. It wasn't till the middle of rush hour that they let Doc call his lawyer, Sancho Smilax. And this is funny. He's in there in a grocery store, and he crashes his cart into Sancho's. And with a collision, legal reflexes reawaken. Hey, would it be okay if I put the sifter in your stuff, man, like for cover? Sure, Doc said. But if you're going to be paranoid, how about all this chocolate, man? So random. Here's some other contents they put in the cart to hopefully disguise it. A gallon of guacamole, everything in the Sara Lee frozen dessert case, a variety of shrink-wrapped Japanese pickles that looked cool. Specificity, this is what works in writing. Actually, I'm a Marine lawyer. Doc thought about this. You're a Marine who practices law? No, wait, you're a lawyer who only represents Marines. And Sancho now answered the phone in some agitation. Doc, have you got the tube on? I'm watching cartoons here, okay, and this Donald Duck one has really been freaking me out. Donald's close-ups is that he has all this whisker stubble, like growing out of his beak. You get the significance of that? Now we're back with Bigfoot stood there whistling some country western tune through his teeth till Doc, not feeling real hopeful, got off the phone. Now then, where were we? Bigfoot pretending to look through some notes. While suspect, that's you, is having his alleged midday nap so necessary to the hippie lifestyle, some sort of incident occurs in the vicinity of Channel View Estates. And then who is it? Sancho. He actually showed up at the door and started right in with Bigfoot. Lieutenant, you don't have any case here, so if you're going to charge him, you better. Otherwise, as a matter of fact, we probably could take this all the way to trial, but with our look, the jury pool would be 99% hippie freaks. Sure, unless you could get the venue changed. Sanch, which one of us are you working for again? He's closely connected with a high-profile homicide and possible kidnapping. The local news came on and everybody went out to the squad room to watch. Cop vehicles parked every which way with their lights all going. And Bigfoot Bjornsson says, apparently a party of civilians on some training exercise in anti-guerrilla warfare. Wait a minute. Sportello, I believe I shall kick you after all. Might attract the attention of the real perpetrator. Bigfoot checked out a semi-obvious Plymouth with little E for exempt symbols on the plates, and they went blasting through the remnants of rush hour up to the Hollywood freeway. As a courtesy, I'm taking you out of the impound garage to get your vehicle. No blood or impact evidence we can use. Congratulations. But then his California reflexes kicked in. Congratulate this, Bigfoot. I've upset you. Nobody calls my car a murderer, man. I'm sorry, your car is some kind of, pacifist vegetarian? Look, we found it almost on top of Charlock's body, idling. Maybe it intended to give the victim mouth-to-mouth? I thought he was shot. Whatever. Be happy your car's in the clear. And Doc took a close look at Bigfoot. Jive-ass sideburns, stupid mustache, haircut from a barber college out of somewhere on a desolate boulevard, far from any current definition of hipness. That is quite the description. You married, Bigfoot? Sorry, you're not my type. He held up his left hand to display a wedding ring. Know what this is, or don't they exist on Planet Hippie? And you have, kids? Isn't it strange? Here that we're both with this mysterious power to ruin each other's day and we don't even know anything about each other? Really profound, Sportello. At the office the next day, Doc was listening to the stereo with his head between his speakers. And it is Tariq Khalil who's calling. I didn't do it. It's okay. But I didn't. Nobody said you did. In fact, they thought for a while it was me. Man, I'm really sorry about Glenn. If Glenn was a target, then so am I. Doc rolled a number and was just about to light up when the phone rang again. This time it was Bigfoot. So we sent some police academy hotshot over to the last known address of Shasta Hepworth. Just a routine visit. And guess what? Ah, fuck, not this. She disappeared too. But there was an ancient superstition at the beach. You take a zigzag paper and write on your dearest wish, and then use it to roll a joint of the best dope you can find and smoke it all up, and your wish would be granted. The wish was simple, just that Shasta Fe be safe. The phone rang again. Hello? Said a young woman's voice after a while. Oh, did I forget to say that? Sorry, this isn't... No, of course it wouldn't be. It's about my husband. He used to be close to a friend of yours, Shasta Fe Hepworth. Hope Harlington. I was wondering how your caseload's looking at the moment. Sure, where are you? It turned out to be an address in Outer Torrance. Doc, who had chronic problem telling one California blonde from another, found an almost 100% classic specimen. Hair, tan, athletic grace, everything but the world-famous insincere smile, owing a set of store-bought choppers which, though technically false, but she noticed Doc's stare and said heroin. Sucks the calcium out of your system like a vampire. Use it at any length of time and your teeth go to hell. Flower child, the wasted derelict, zapped like magic. And that's the good part, keeping it up long enough. Well, she was not a weeper, she was a pacer. I love that line. That's such a beautiful line. Her husband, Coy Harlington, had OD'd on heroin. Coy had played with the Boards, a surf band. It was never his work that I was in love with. We met squalid down at Oscar's in San Isidro. I had just gone running into this toilet stall without checking first, had my finger already down my throat, and there Coy sat, gringo digestion, about to take a gigantic shit. We both let go at the same time, barf and shit all over the place, me with my face in his lap, and to complicate things, of course he had a hard-on. Well, and we got married. Next thing we knew, here came Amethyst. She handed Doc a couple of Polaroid baby pictures. He was startled at the baby's appearance, swollen, red-faced, vacant. Everybody we knew helpfully pointed out how the heroin was coming through in my breast milk. And so this thing happened to your husband? It wasn't California Spac, for sure. Somebody had to have switched bags on him deliberately, knowing it would kill him. Doc became aware of a baby, or technically a toddler. Hey, Doc said, you're that Amethyst, ain't you? Yep, replied Amethyst, as if about to add, what's it to you? Nice to meet you, Doc said. Real nice. Ask you something, Doc? Long as it ain't the capital of South Dakota, sure. Another random line from Doc the Stoner. This mutual friend you and Coy have had, is she like some kind of ex or something? This mutual friend you and Coy have had, is she like some kind of ex, or were you just dating, or? Who did Doc have to talk to about any of this that wasn't Stone, jealous, or a cop? And this is another fantastic line. There was too much kindness in the room all of a sudden. That's a great way of telling, where telling actually works. I know in writing we're always talking about showing and telling, but that is a beautiful tell. She had her diary from that period, and she remembered to write it down. Lieutenant Dubonnet. Oh yeah, Pat Dubonnet. We've transacted one or two pieces of business. There's this other thing that happened. Look, she brought out an old bank statement from shortly after Coy's alleged overdose from her account at the local Bank of America and pointed to a credit. I thought maybe somebody's idea of a payoff. Is there a picture of Coy you could spare? She pulled out a liquor square box full of Polaroids. Amy likes them, likes it when we look through them. I tell her a little bit about each one, and she should have something anyhow when she gets older to remind her. Don't you think? Me? Sure, sometimes I like to have one for every minute. Rent, like a warehouse? She gave him one of the social worker looks. Another great line. Doc nodded and picked up the first picture to hand, a shot of Coy holding his tenor. Okay if I take this one? And later in the afternoon, Doc drifted up to the tree section of his Aunt Reed's place, where he found his cousin Scott Oof out in the garage with his band. Scott had been playing with a local group known as the Corvairs until they'd assembled this new band, which they called Beer. Of course, Beer frontman Huey was singing while the rhythm guitar and bass filled behind him. This is interesting how there's actually lyrics here. The big, big valley, guitar riff, the big valley. Very deep lyrics we have here. The Big Valley? Big? That's for sure. It's the Big Valley. It's like my roots, Scott explained. My mom hates the San Joaquin, but you don't know, man. Every time I go up there, gigs at the Coachella, Kiwanis, or whatever, there's this strange feeling like I used to live there. You did live there, Doc pointed out. No, like another life, man. Anything on the rock and roll grapevine? Doc inquired. About a surf saxophone player named Coy Harlington? OD'd, right? Said Lefty, the bass player. Allegedly OD'd, Scott said. There's also been a strange rumor going around. Some say that they paid him to go on pretending he's dead, and he's out there someplace right now walking among us in disguise, like with different hair and so forth. Why would anybody go to that much trouble? Doc said. Yeah, said Lefty. Not like he's some hot-looking singer every trick wants to ball. And later, when Doc was getting in his car, Aunt Reed stuck her head out in the bungalow office window and hollered at him. So you had to go talk to Mickey Wolfman. Nice timing. What did I tell you, wise ass? Was I right? I forget, Doc said. Okay, crazy stuff's happening. We meet Bigfoot finally. We get another tip on some other guy who is allegedly murdered. He seems like he overdosed. Who knows? How is all of this going to add up? I have no idea. We can see the connections coming together, though. Which brings us to Chapter 3. The cop who'd called Hope Harlington with the news about Coy's overdose, Pat Dubonnet, was now a top kahuna at the Gordita Beach Station. Time for a visit, he decided, to Hippophobia Central. He drove past the Gordita Beach Station house before he recognized it. Doc located Pat Dubonnet in his office and, reaching into his fringe shoulder bag, withdrew a foil-wrapped object around a foot long. Here you go, Pat, expressly for you. Before he could blink, the detective had grabbed, unwrapped, and somehow ingested at least half of the lengthy wiener and bun within, which had also come with everything on it, all caps. It's a spot. Amazed I have an appetite. Who let you in, by the way? Pose as a drug snitch. Fools him every time. Look at this miserable place. It's the endless bummer. But we can't all be Bigfoot Bjornson, can we? Ups, I mean, who'd want to be him anyway? I'd settle for a life swap even with him. Weird, Pat, because what I hear is he's scuffling these days. Is Bigfoot giving you problems again? You could see a struggle going on here in Pat's mind between two major cop reflexes, envy of another cop's career versus hatred of hippies. He didn't actually quote you as some. He listed some expenses. Ah, yeah, I get you. Groovy, course. He added after some reflection. He's got all them residuals. Doc by now had very little idea what they must be talking about, which is the same as me. That was ironic here. They're having this conversation. I'm like, I'm not even sure where the hell this is going. I had to read it a couple times. I try to stay awake for those reruns, he hazarded, but somehow I always crash before Bigfoots are on. Bigfoot's commercials. Bigfoot can end up with a script and production credits even play himself the asshole. Not to mention if he gets Mickey back, he's a public hero. Mickey and him are that tight, huh? Ace buddies. You think Bigfoot's Jewish too? Swedish, I thought. Could be both, Pat dimly defensive. There can be Swedish Jews. I know there's Swedish fish. Basically only trying to be helpful. Crazy, weird story, man. There's really not much to talk about the story other than there is a mystery. So Shasta, his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend, comes to him looking for help. And then when he goes to try to investigate, he gets into more crap. He's almost accused of murder and kidnapping. So this is a wild ride so far. I can definitely see why they say it is some kind of noir mixed with Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Not that I've read it, but I'm very familiar with the film anyway. But what are you thinking so far? I wish there was more to talk about, but it feels like the story is just getting started. 50 pages in. It's a very slow burn so far. We'll see if it picks up or if it just continues at this very deliberate pace. But for next week, I believe we're going to be reading, yes, chapters 4 through 7. So I'll see you then. Let me know your comments. If you're not in the Discord and you'd like to chat about it further, join it. The link is down below. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. And thanks for reading along with me, of course. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.